We all like to think that the place we call home takes care of its own right.
Yeah.
Like, especially the most vulnerable people.
Yeah.
But what happens when those systems, that are supposed to be protecting those people, what happens when they become a source of harm?
Right.
That's what we're talking about in this deep dive.
Yeah.
About Texas's state-supported living centers.
Okay.
SSLCs.
Yeah.
And we're looking at this article. Let me tell you, it's a doozy.
Okay.
Texas state-sponsored hell.
Yeah. It's a tough title.
So
it is, and it's a stark contrast to, the image of Texas that many people have. This big, resource-rich state.
Right.
And then you read a title like that, and it's like, oh, okay, there's something else going on here.
Yeah, Texas, big and tough, right?
Yeah.
Big state, lots of money. We take care of everybody.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're seeing in this article by Texas Watchdog. They're saying that this is where a lot of Texans with intellectual and developmental disabilities are living, in these SSLCs, and it's really, really bad.
Yeah. And it's not just a Texas problem. I mean, we see institutional abuse across the country.
Right.
But Texas has been under the microscope for a particularly long time.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's what's so shocking and so disturbing about this.
Well, let's give people some background here. SSLCs, these are supposed to be these safe havens, right?
Right.
Providing care for folks who need a little extra help.
Right.
But this report, it's like from the jump, it's a very different picture.
Yeah.
2009 at the Corpus Christi SSLC.
Yeah.
Staff organized and filmed fights between residents.
I mean, it sounds like, they got the idea from the movie Fight Club.
Yeah. It's literally like Fight Club stuff.
It is.
How does that even happen?
That's the question.
Like,
Really.
are we talking like a couple of bad apples here? Or is there something bigger, a deeper problem within the system itself?
And that's the thing. This wasn't just like a one-time incident.
Yeah.
It points to this culture, this environment where abuse is allowed to fester. And the fact that it was filmed, that they thought this was entertaining.
Right. It's not just happening. They're proud of it.
Exactly. And what does that say about the level of oversight or lack thereof? Because this is a system that has been under investigation by the Department of Justice for over 15 years.
15 years. So since like 2009.
At least. And they're still not meeting basic standards of care. They're still failing these vulnerable adults.
That's terrifying. So they're being investigated, but nothing's changing.
And that's the problem, right? We see these reports, these investigations, but where's the follow-through? In the meantime, people are being harmed. We have cases like Sean Yates, a man with Asperger's who died after he managed to escape from that same Corpus Christi facility.
Oh my God.
And his family, they had no idea about any of the abuse he had endured until after he was already gone.
How do you even process that? Your loved one dies, and then you find out they were suffering this whole time and nobody told you. It's like a double betrayal.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that this isn't just about policy or funding. It's about real lives being lost, real families being shattered. And these stories are often silenced because the individuals involved might not be able to speak up for themselves.
It's heartbreaking and infuriating. And what gets me is this isn't even an isolated incident. This report, it highlights another horrifying statistic. 17 deaths in a single year, just at the Lubbock SSLC, under what they're calling questionable circumstances. 17.
It's like, can you imagine if that happened at a school? If 17 children died in a school in 1 year, it would be national news.
Absolutely, if there'd be outrage.
But because it happens in these facilities to people who are often forgotten, ignored, it's swept under the rug, it makes you wonder, how many deaths are we willing to accept as a society before we demand change?
Yeah. Before we say enough is enough, and that's the big question, isn't it? Why are these SSLCs allowed to stay open? You have abuse, people are dying. It's like, shouldn't shutting these places down be a no-brainer?
You would think so, right? But it's more complicated than that.
Okay, so lay it out for me. Why are these places still open?
Well, the Texas Watchdog report, they really dig into this. And what they found is, it's all about the money.
Always is, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
So how much money are we talking about here? Give me the numbers.
Okay, so Texas taxpayers, they shell out a whopping $661.9 million every year on these SSLCs.
Whoa, hold on.
That's a lot of money.
$661.9 million. That's like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, how do I even picture that much money?
I know, right? And when you break it down per resident, it comes out to over $120,000 per person per year.
Wait, did you say $120,000 a year per resident?
Yep. That's more than double what it costs for community-based care.
Okay, so hold on. Not only is it more expensive to keep these places running with all these problems, But we're also talking about an alternative, community care. That's actually cheaper and probably better.
Exactly. Community-based care is way more cost-effective, and it gives people more independence. They get to live in their communities instead of being stuck in these institutions.
So what's the deal? Why are we still pouring money into this broken system if we have a better, cheaper alternative?
It boils down to politics and economics. It always does, right?
Right.
So these SSLCs, a lot of them are in rural areas, and guess what? They're often the biggest employer in town.
Okay, so jobs. Jobs are important, I get that.
Absolutely. But we're talking about a system that's failing vulnerable people, and these politicians, they're more worried about losing votes than they are about protecting people's lives.
It's like they're holding these communities hostage.
In a way, they are. They're saying, well, if we close these facilities, then you're going to lose jobs, and people get scared. They need those jobs.
So what can we do?
It's about changing the narrative. We need to show people that there are other options, that community-based care can actually be an economic engine, too.
Okay, so it's not just about the money. It's about who's got the power and who benefits from the status quo.
Exactly. And that power dynamic, it trickles down. It affects everyone, even people who are trying to do the right thing. Like, remember Linda Moore? She worked at the Lubbock SSLC, and she got fired for blowing the whistle on abuse.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to silence anyone who dares to speak out against them.
Exactly. And when you have that kind of culture where whistleblowers are punished and abuse is swept under the rug, it creates an environment where these problems are just going to continue.
It's like a self-perpetuating cycle of silence and abuse.
And the saddest part is that it's the families, the people who have loved ones in these facilities who are caught in the middle. They're forced to make an impossible choice. Do I keep my loved one in a place where I know they might be abused? Or do I fight tooth and nail to get them into a community-based program that has a 7-year wait list?
7 years? Are you serious? That's insane. Who can wait 7 years for care?
I know, right? It's a broken system that's failing the very people it's supposed to help. And it's all connected. The money, the politics, the lack of accountability, it's all intertwined.
So it's like we're talking about two different versions of Texas. The one where we like to think we take care of our own.
Yeah.
And then the reality, you know, this underbelly of neglect and failure.
Yeah. It's a tough pill to swallow for sure.
So knowing all this, is anybody doing anything to fix this?
Yeah.
To break the cycle?
Well, there have been some attempts. The Texas Sunset Advisory Commission.
Now, hold on. For those of us who aren't, you know, political science majors here.
Right.
What is the Texas Sunset Advisory Commission?
It's basically a watchdog group that evaluates state agencies.
Okay.
They look at whether these agencies are actually necessary and if they're doing their jobs effectively.
So they're like the efficiency police.
Kind of. And back in 2020, they actually reviewed the SSLCs.
Oh, so they looked into this.
They did. And guess what they recommended?
Right.
Closing 6 of them.
Wow. 6 of the SSLCs.
Yeah.
That's huge. So what happened? Did they actually shut them down?
You already know the answer to that.
No, they didn't. Come on. So predictable.
It's frustrating, right? So yeah, the politicians, lobbyists, contractors, all the folks who benefit from the system, they came out swinging.
Oh, I bet they did.
Saying, oh, this will devastate local economies. What about the jobs? Where will these vulnerable people go?
All the classic excuses.
Right.
But isn't the whole point that these places are dangerous and failing to provide adequate care?
That seems to get lost in the shuffle, doesn't it? It's like the bottom line is more important than people's lives. And that's what's so disturbing about this whole thing.
It's like this deep-rooted corruption, this lack of accountability that just seems to permeate everything.
And this Texas Watchdog report, it really highlights that. It's bigger than just the SSLCs. We're talking about a system that prioritizes profit over people.
It can feel overwhelming, right? Like, where do you even start to address something like this? It's easy to feel helpless.
I get it. It's a big, complex problem. But we can't let that paralyze us. Awareness is a huge first step.
Okay, so we're aware. Now what? What can we actually do?
We got to support the organizations that are fighting for these folks, the ones advocating for disability rights, pushing for better community-based care options. Those groups, they're on the front lines of this battle every single day.
So donate, volunteer, get involved.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of using your voice. Talk to your friends, family, neighbors about this. Share this deep dive. Let's get people talking about it. Raise awareness.
Right, because this isn't just some political hot potato. We're talking about human lives.
Well, those lives deserve better. Every single one.
This has been a tough one.
It has.
But I think it's so important that we have these conversations, even if they're difficult.
Absolutely.
And I think for our listeners, if you're feeling any kind of way about this, if you're upset, if you're angry,
use that.
if you're motivated to do something,
channel that energy.
That's a good thing, right?
It is. It's what creates change.
So hold on to that feeling. Don't let this be just another news cycle that fades away. Remember the names we talked about? Sean, Linda, David. These were real people, failed by the very system that was supposed to keep them safe.
And let their stories be a call to action.
Exactly. We can do better, Texas. We have to do better.